we are in this moment right now, and today we're talking about why you can't always be so spiritual when, you know, there's you have your callings in society, and you're called to go and contribute to something in society and play the working cogs in society, but you can't always be so spiritual. You can't always be so like deeply spiritual. Why? Because you'll get shaken down regardless of if you're spiritual or not. Playing this human experience, playing in society, these are factors, these are things that will shake you down along your journey, along your process. Like if you work a job or you work a 9 to 5, you're supposed to work early in the morning. You sleep in, and then your boss is calling you, where are you? And then you're like, what? You wake up and you're like, what is going on? I need to go to work. I'm late. I can't do this. The cortisol spikes, the cortisol goes up. You're operating on stress and cortisol, and you're anxious, and you're like, forget all the spiritual stuff. I need to get to work. I can't. Like, I'm in this, I'm playing this role. I have this calling to go work my job, and I'm not working my job right now because I slept in past my alarm, right? And I'm just stressed out and I'm anxious. Forget all the spiritual stuff. Forget about this, meditation and feeling so high and living so high and seeing the world at a very high level from a very high point. Forget all that stuff. I need to get to work as soon as I can. Let me brush my teeth. I don't even have time to wash my face. I jump in my car and I floor it. I go straight to work, you know? Or, uh, like maybe your friend dies or your mom dies, and you're like, this whole, like, when something happens where that's, like a travesty or a, a situation that's just heartbreaking that you're placed into, you're gonna get locked in. You're gonna get locked in into that experience. You're gonna fully get locked in and fully submerged into that experience because these are all this. It's a part of the human experience. And you're not even gonna think about any of that spiritual stuff. You're gonna get emotional. You're gonna get maybe emotionally vulnerable. You're gonna forget all that stuff. The meditation, the preserving my sexual energy, the crazy yoga, the having like this intense, these meditations where I'm leaving my body. Forget all that stuff. Forget the astral travel and hanging out in the astral realm and meditating until I'm above my body and just seeing the world from a very high point. Forget all that stuff. I'm going through this travesty right now. I'm going through this difficult situation, and it can be a very humane experience. And it like draws you when something happens, right? Maybe you get fired from your job. You're not gonna think about any of this stuff. You get locked in on what happened, and then you become so emotional. You become so emotionally invested because this is just the way this whole human experience is. You can't really draw the line between, you know, the 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 emotions that the body, can create, and like being in this sort of other perspective where you are being very spiritual and you're engaging in these high habits and these high vibrational habits, you're living high and you see the world from a high view and a high point, because this emotional um, feeling is just so deep. Like it runs so deeply. It's one of our limitations as far as being in this body, being in this vessel. These are one of the limitations that are created, is having a very strong, deep, powerful emotional feel experience in this body, right? They call it the emotional body, the pain body, the feelings. I call it the feelings filter. This is what the feelings filter is, and you can't escape it when you're in this body, when you're in this vessel, when you're in this human body, and you're experiencing these human experiences and so on. You can't try and disassociate it away. You can't try and just meditate it away, because then you're just going to be creating the act of trying to meditate it all away. You can't get rid of this stuff. This is the way that nature designed ourselves. So you get, it's like when something goes wrong, it's like it hits you and you get locked in emotionally, and you're like, forget all that high stuff. I'm gonna cry my eyes out because I just lost my job and I loved my job and that was my purpose for that time being, and I enjoyed whatever aspect that I enjoyed of it, and I just lost it forever, and now I'm gonna cry, and I'm just gonna, it's like you get, when something clicks, it's like one little snap can just shake you down. One little trigger can just shake you down from living so high and being in this high state of mind when you're engaging into these spiritual practices and you're living this spiritual lifestyle. You lose your job, maybe your girlfriend or your partner breaks up with you, your mom dies or your dad dies, you lose your house, you lose your car, your dog dies, whatever it is. You're not going to think about any of this high stuff over here, the preserving your sexual energy, the yoga, the karma yoga, the astral projection, whatever, right? The semen retention, whatever. You're over here experiencing this human experience, these human emotions, this feeling filter that has been subscribed to you, that has been prescribed to you. You're going to experience that because you really don't have a choice to not experience it in that time being, and if you try not to, then it's just going to be you not trying to experience it, right? And you can't you could try and put on an act and a facade like, oh, I'm so stoic and I'm so strong and I'm good, but it's gonna affect you in some way, shape, or form. It has no, it's inevitable that it's going to affect you on some level, emotionally or mentally or spiritually. Even if you act as if you're the most stoic person and you're the most grounded person, that's great if you are. There's nothing really wrong with that. There's really nothing wrong with being, super stoic and grounded and spiritual. But when travesties occur and hardships occur in your life, trials and tribulations, they arrive, right? Maybe you'll get tested. Maybe, these things will be tests for you, or they'll be trials for you, or there'll be experiences to bring you closer to your higher self, or to unlock the fragments inside of you that have always been inside of you, such as who you've been since the beginning, and to bring you closer to your divine source and to your higher self, or maybe unlock your higher nature. So there's a lot of reasons as to why things happen to you, but things don't necessarily happen to you, they happen for you, you know? And life can be the greatest teacher. So, you know, like there's a huge mosquito right here. It's trying to drink my blood. It's very parched, okay? So, I think that was everything I needed to say. There's like 3 mosquitoes right here, or 5, and they're just bugging me. No pun intended, but actually that was intended. And that was everything I needed to say, because I had this experience, I don't know, last week, where I showed up late to work because I had an issue with my alarm and whatnot. And then it's like I didn't think about any of this stuff, right? It's like I had tunnel vision. As soon as I woke up and I knew I was late for work, I had tunnel vision. You know, it's like when travesties happen, you get tunnel vision. You know, you forget about all the high stuff, you forget about all the spiritual woo-woo stuff, right? And it's like back to reality. It's back to this human experience, living it, playing your role in this human society, in this construct. And you have like tunnel vision, right? You don't think about anything else. You're just experiencing that one thing. And it's like your whole reality just shifts, right? You're like, it's like all this filter, this feeling filter, just boom, it activates. And, you know, you're operating and you're feeling, you're really experiencing these emotions, these feelings for what they really are. And sometimes it could be very, very powerful. And it's very, very, what's the word? You know, these feelings, these emotions are very, yeah, there's a lot of mosquitoes right now. It's springtime. These feelings, these emotions, they're very persuasive. Like, they're very convincing, right? They're super convincing, because it's like when travesty happens, like you're doing your semen retention, you're doing your crazy outer body spiritual practice, right? You're entering different planes, right? You know, a travesty happens, boom, the feeling filter activates, and it just blocks your vision, it blocks your view, right? The feeling filter. So, you know, be aware of that, be conscious of that. It's okay to, you know, be aware of it when it happens, when those feeling filters, when it, you know, shuts in front of your vision, your field of vision, because this human body has its limitations, right? But be aware of it, be conscious of it. It's a part of this human experience, and it should be known, it should be, you know, viewed, it should be like looked at, and it should be noticed, and it should be taken into consideration, right? When you're on this spiritual journey, when you're on this path of self-realization and self-awareness, like, yeah, you need to be aware of these things. You need to be open to seeing every little, you know, window of human experience and possibilities. You know, when you're on this path, when you're on this journey of, you know, expanding your awareness, expanding your consciousness, when you're on this journey, you're on this path to self-realization, then I think it's very conducive to try and be as aware of everything of that, you know, that's happening to you, you know, in the body, you know, in this body with its limitations, you know, with this mind that we're given, and, you know, with all of these experiences, you know, because that's what generates and creates the living wisdom that we have, you know, in the moment. So I think that was it for this topic. Let me know what you guys think. If you don't let me know, that's fine too. Thanks for watching.